Good evening, everybody. My name is Ben Emmons, and tonight I'm going to talk about the demise of a superhero. The superhero is faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a speeding train. He's able to leap from the moon to the earth in only 2 seconds. It travels throughout space at a measly 186,000 miles per second. Its only natural enemy at this point in the ball game has been the planet-devouring, the galaxy-eating black hole. Who's the superhero I speak of? The superhero is called Light, and Light now has a new fear, and that fear is man. On January 28th, 2001, 3 amazing, intelligent, and persistent scientists were able to stop light, channel it, hold it, and then send it on its way. What this budding accomplishment means to you and I is that it will change the way we communicate with each other in all mediums for the next 15 years. It has the possibility to change the way our children perceive and navigate the universe for the next 50 years. Not only is this experiment amazing, but the theories behind it are wildly abundant, and they can be used for many applications. Basically, scientists proved an age-old theory correct. In 1925, Einstein and an Indian physicist named Bose said if you chilled atoms to a low enough point that they'd interlock together and form one big solid, dense mass. So basically, the scientists were able to do so. They chilled these atoms out, called sodium atoms, to a low enough point, and they stopped their movement altogether, and they basically formed one solid mass. And they put this mass inside of a big old, I don't know, say fish tank, okay? And they chilled the atmosphere and took out all the atmosphere out of it, made a vacuum a trillion times worse than we experience here on Earth, and dropped the temperature to about 7 degrees above absolute zero, which is really chilly. Okay, really chilly. So you got these atoms to stand still. I guess you can actually see these atoms, all right? So it looks kind of like a solid mass. And they shot one little laser off the width of it, all right, which kind of turned into like a little waving mass. And they shot a light beam about 1.5 miles long at the length of this mass, all right? It gets a little complicated. But as soon as they turned off this laser, the mass stopped moving, and it sucked in all the light. And this 1.5 mile long beam of light was totally sucked in and was kept there. And as soon as the scientists wanted to let it go, they shot this other beam at the width of it again and let it go. They actually shot pulses at it, so they let it go in 3 different parts. Okay? Basically, what this kind of seems like to you and I, if we were to actually see this and understand it in layman's terms, which is what I operate in. If we're standing on a train tracks and we're waiting for a train, you look off to your left and you see a train coming towards you about 100 miles an hour. All right, it's barreling towards you, you can hear it, you're waiting for it, it's not a big deal. All of a sudden you look to this right and you see this bump across the tracks. In Seattle, it's a bump, so you're not that concerned. Yeah, it's normal happening. And he stretches this thin cotton sheet across the tracks. And he sits there, and he comes over and stands beside you, and crosses his arm, and he kind of sits there. And you look over there, and you kind of figure it's kind of a protest kind of thing, because it's Seattle, and protests happen. You look to your left, and here comes this train, and it's barreling, it's not stopping, it's going right through the station. So it's going 100 miles an hour, and all of a sudden it hits this cotton sheet, and it starts being sucked into the sheet. Third train, second train, first train, it's gone. All that's left is no noise, no movement, nothing whatsoever, just a little bit of wind. And you're standing there in pretty much amazement. You haven't seen this before. And Bum's kind of doing a little happy dance. Bum's stoked about it, he's whistling. And he looks over you, and you look over the Bum, he clicks his finger, and that train takes off on the other side. Like it never stopped, like it was never interfered with, nothing else happened whatsoever. So there you have it. That right now is the cutting edge of technology as we know it. Pretty much, lost my train of thought completely. Pretty much scientists have developed ways to manipulate matter as they wish at the molecular level, and they found out a way to stop light and do as they wish. And that is where we are headed towards the future at this point. Thank you. For me, made the old saying ring true, and that saying is that first impressions are the most important. I don't only mean that impressions of physical characteristics, but also for depth of character as well. Takashi and I emailed each other about 2 or 3 times over the week. We were trying to give each other something you have to talk about here for 2 minutes that would keep your interest and make things halfway interesting, which isn't incredibly hard to do. And Takashi inadvertently kind of revealed a story to me that kind of gave me a little insight into his character. And the story is when he first came to America, he stayed in Port Townsend for a while, hung out there. And he stayed with a family, and that family had a son that was taking sailing lessons. And the family asked Takashi if he'd like to take part of this little sailing lesson thing. And he said, sure, he'd love to. So he went to the first lesson, and he thoroughly enjoyed himself, had a blast, had a great time. He really wasn't understanding what the instructor was saying, but that didn't matter. It was not very important sailing. He had a great time. So by the time the first lesson was over, he was ready for the second lesson. And in between the first and second lesson, he bought a brand new pair of Nike shoes. So he showed up to the second lesson, and he was down. He was walking down the pier. He was ready to sail, all right? He was looking cool, all right? So he takes the first step off the pier, and halfway through that first step, he realized that he didn't have the centerboard down on the sailboat. Now, the centerboard is part of the sailboat that allows the boat to move straight forward. It kind of negates the movement east and west and south. So halfway through his first step, he realized this, and I'm sure a bunch of other things went through Takeshi's head as well at that moment. To say the least, he did not wind up in the sailboat. Instead, he wound up about 4 feet of water, about 6 inches of mud. Totally destroyed his brand new shoes. He was not very happy at that moment whatsoever. I tell you a story not to humiliate Takeshi whatsoever, or even to embarrass him. But the telling of a man, a mature man, is that he can relate a story to you of his own misfortune and laugh at himself. He doesn't tell you the story so that you can laugh with him, but so you can feel better about yourself, that other people do make mistakes as well, every once in a while. And that's a person that you know you can trust, a person who's well-rounded and realistic. And you know he's willing to listen to your problems. And when he laughs, he's not laughing at you, he's laughing with you. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a good person, Takashi. And I'm not going to say the last name because I'll butcher it. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ben Emmons, and the title of my speech is The Power Generation. Lately, you and I have been complaining either silently or loudly about the cost of our energy bills. We've been wishing that there is something to ease the stress on the current power grids and our walls that would affect the way that we use and pay for power. I'm here to tell you there is a solution to the current energy crisis, and the answer has been gaining acceptance throughout the major movers and shakers throughout this country. The implementation and development of this fuel source will break the shackles that have tied us solely to fossil fuels. It will also give us financial freedom, not only from U.S. energy companies, but also from overseas oil consortiums. At its optimum performance, this fuel source will operate at 99% efficiency, and that's in contrast to 20% efficiency we get out of our current gasoline and diesel combustion engines. And the best part of it is, it runs on the most abundant fuel source in the universe, and that's hydrogen. What am I talking about? I'm talking about fuel cells. And tonight, I will give you a basic explanation of how they work, where they are at now, and where their future applications may take us. Fuel cells have been around for a while, since 1839 in fact. Basically, a fuel cell produces electricity, heat, and water using oxygen and fuel. Basically what we have here is a fuel cell outlined in black, all right? You take hydrogen and you shove it over here on the anode side, and it interacts with a platinum catalyst. Now, a catalyst is something that increases the rate of the reaction without actually adding to the reaction. So this hydrogen hits this platinum and it busts apart, okay? And what you have left is you have protons and electrons. Now, let's say with the protons, we'll follow through the little fuel cell first. Protons pass through the membrane and they hit another platinum catalyst, which allows them to connect to oxygen and electrons in order to form pure water. And this is completely drinkable water, and this stuff is pure to its utmost, okay? Now you have these electrons over here. They're hanging out on the left-hand side of the fuel cell because they can't pass through the membrane. So basically, this anode over here attracts them, and they get sucked up, and they pass through a generator, and they create electricity, okay? And when they're done doing their little electricity thing, they go down the other side, they get dumped out here on the cathode side, and they connect here with oxygen and protons in order to form pure water, okay? So that's a completely efficient fuel cell ran on hydrogen. Basically what I want you to think of a fuel cell is it's basically a rechargeable battery, okay? It will run as long as it has fuel. And this fuel can be anything. It can be gasoline, it can be natural gas, it can be methane, it can be ethanol, it can be propane, etc. You name it, it can do it. But don't let me mislead you. You can use any fuels that contain hydrogen, but once you get away from pure elemental use of hydrogen, you start decreasing the efficiency of the fuel cell. What you have to do is if you use gasoline, you have to refine that gasoline in order to produce hydrogen. That creates byproducts, which is emissions, and that's something you don't want to do. But trust me, if you want to use like a gasoline fuel cell in a car, that would still be 30 to 40% less emissions than normal cars that we have on the roads today. So even though you're still creating emissions, it's far less than what we use at this point. As an added bonus, there's no moving parts to this fuel cell. It's all a chemical process, so therefore there's very little noise involved in the whole process. So we've gone over how fuel cells work. Now I'm sure you'd like to know if this is actually a practical idea or if I'm just blowing smoke in a general direction. Well, let me give you a few examples of where they are now. The Yanzi Corp, which is the major leading producer of fuel cells, commercial fuel cells, has been supplying hospitals, nursing homes, office buildings, and hotels all over the United States with fuel cells. Now, these are mostly offices and buildings and nursing homes that are out in the boonies. They really don't have a constant source of electrical power from electric grids, so they need something alternate other than gasoline or other kind of driven motors. NASA has been using fuel cells since 1960. As a matter of fact, the Apollo 13 incident was created by an oxygen tank that exploded, and that interfered with the process of a fuel cell. Our neighbors down in Portland, Oregon have used a fuel cell stack at their local sewage treatment plant. This fuel cell stack generates 100 kilowatts of electricity from 70% of the methane byproducts of the sewage treatment plant. That's enough to like 200 homes, and it saves the Portland Power Company $100,000 each year, and that number is supposed to grow exponentially in the future. And by the way, this is methane that has traditionally been wafted out into the atmosphere or flamed off, and that's pretty much bogus for the environment. So this fuel cell stack at a sewage treatment plant is very good for the environment. Lastly, Vancouver, BC, and Chicago, Illinois have been experimenting with fuel cell buses that they want to mass produce and introduce in their mass transit system. Bus drivers have actually been driving fuel cell buses in the Chicago area, and they hope to have them out in production by 2002 or 2003 or so. So this is all fine and good, but where will fuel cells be 10 to 30 years down the road, these years that directly affect you and I? Will they be one-hit wonders like Weezer, or will they survive the test of time like Pearl Jam, Aerosmith, or perhaps even the Doors? Well, I say they're here to stay. Most budding applications probably won't reach the home use till 2003 or 2005. General Electric is already producing a fuel cell for home use that is about the size of a refrigerator, and it will cost no more than your electricity bill. It runs off propane. California has taken the energy race right up to the automotive industry's front door and dropped off the baton. They have mandated that 10% of the new cars bought in California by 2003 will be environmentally friendly. That means over 200,000 new cars that are bought in California will have alternate source of energy other than gas or diesel combustion engines. At this point, divisions in Los Alamos are researching ways to miniaturize fuel cells so that they can fit into cell phones, Walkmans, Discmans, lawnmowers, vacuum cleaners, laptops, etc. The advantage is that when you run out of juice, you just insert tiny ampules, which is some kind of little plastic carrying device or a glass carrying device, right into the fuel cell, and that gives you juice. And this is a bonus because batteries, are very bad for the environment, and they really aren't that productive. So you can get actually more energy off these ampules of ethanol. These are just a few obvious ways that fuel cells will revolutionize applications as we know it. You can generalize the revolution of fuel cells into three basic viewpoints. A, being the first one, is the most basic, is how we dispose of both liquid and solid waste at our homes. Secondly, would be B, a more global view, being able to cease our dependency on foreign nations for alternate fuel sources. And finally, C, a broad, long-term goal is being able to actually say that we've taken a proactive step in preserving our planet. So that, in essence, is how fuel cells work, where they have been, and where they are going to take us. I hope I've given you a decent heads up of what's coming down the technological pipe. It's not a choice of ignoring nor accepting the slow advance of fuel cell technology. It will happen, whether we choose it or not. Our quality of our lives and the future lives depend on it. Thank you. Any questions?
I heard that fuel cells are really expensive. That was one of the main.
They have been up to the point until about 4 years ago, and they've actually figured out the way to bring the cost down from $35,000 to $3,500. And the main use of that was the flatland and how they use it and how they use it in the fuel cells. So it's even better. Any others? Yes.
For my house, how big would this be?
It depends. Right now they got a refrigerator-sized unit that will go in,
and that should provide enough electricity for your house and also an excess power for the power grid as a whole. So it depends. We're trying to miniaturize it, but right now it's like around a refrigerator size.
Can you tell that they took it out?
That's the kind of plan. That's kind of what they're looking for. You should be able to do so. You should be able to produce enough energy for yourself and others. Any others? Yes.
Are there any competing technologies?
Yes, there is solar energy. It's big time, especially up in space. And it's talking about microwaving the energy down to space to the planet. So yes, solar energy is one. That's all the questions I have now. Hopefully, these kind of cover things and give you an avenue to express yourself. Thank you.